Fred.
Yes.
We tightened up. Fred, are you gonna make what you said in the press or whatever it was about the police stuff?
Right. I'm not, I'm not.
No, I'm talking about having the police, or do we have that group that didn't function?
It's Police Citizens Committee.
Yeah. Why don't you do that in your district? And have a group that wants to work with your office and what you can help them with.
Yeah, we want to citywide though.
Yeah, okay. My guy won't do it again, I don't think.
Get another one. Get another one.
Yeah, I could. I guess. I'll ask him. I mean, he tried. He went to all the meetings. He was good.
Do you not notice? Hell. I brought up about it used to be 20 pounds.
All right.
Seriously.
Okay, great. Well, with everybody, right?
Yeah. I want to be real thin like you, though.
I just never heard back
See, I
from
got a
her.
big old head. To see if you lose too much, you look like something wrong with you.
I'll write her then if that's the case. I
Maybe.
didn't realize, I just never heard that she wanted my date, because I gave her both Wednesdays. Thank you, though, for doing that. I appreciate it.
We're going on. Yeah. But what was wrong with that, though?
Well, nothing.
That's what I'm saying.
The problem with this school is from here down, I look better. From here up, I look worse.
Right.
Does she still have just the Gmail address, or does she have a City of Mobile address, Jasmine? Okay, because I just have a Gmail for her, because she wasn't employed yet, I don't think. Or at least my mailbox said that. Okay, so is it,
Forward to your cell phone.
what is that?
It's the city mobile address. I just forward to your cell phone.
Oh, I don't have my cell phone with
Ladies
me.
and gentlemen.
Oh, yeah, I can
not
look
to
it
be
up, never
saying
mind.
Anything inappropriate, but it's just
Thank
been
you.
informed to me that our mics are long. And make sure y'all know that. Danny's in here. We're gonna have to be strict with it.
Right, Mr. Cordy,
I'm sorry, Danny.
we're gonna have to ask you to leave as well, if you don't mind. We're gonna have to, we've asked that all persons, right here, all persons outside of city staff would wait there at the atrium, and we're having to be pretty strict with it, so we're gonna have to ask you if you don't mind to join them out in the atrium.
Sorry about that, dude. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Make an announcement.
This is a regular meeting of the Mobile City Council, Tuesday, June 2nd. Please stand for our invocation led by Council Member District 1, Frederick Richardson, and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Eternal and all-wise God, it is again that your humble servant bows before you for all of the blessings that you bestowed among us. Father, we thank you for giving us this great privilege to take care of your children's business. We pray that you might bless everyone that's under the sound of my voice, especially our mayor, council, indeed all of our citizens in the city of Mobile. Father, we come today with the plague among us. We ask you to please show us your bountifully mercy, and Father, help us that we may overcome. Help us as we transact this business. Whatever we do, you may get glory and honor. Guide us, forgive us, and keep us, and cause your faith to shine among us. In the matchless name of Jesus, I pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we sit, I'd ask that we would observe a moment of silence. First, in honor and in memory of all the 110,000 persons and families who have been impacted by the coronavirus, this horrendous pandemic that has inflicted not only our city and our state and country, but indeed this entire world. And I also ask that we would recognize in a moment of silence the memory of Mr. George Floyd and the passion and the sensitivity that has really erupted all across this country. Families that have been impacted, business owners and communities that have been impacted, and hopeful and prayerful that as a result of this turmoil, that a better day will be found for all citizens in the country. Let's pray. Thank you.
Roll call, President Manzi,
Here.
Vice President Small,
Here.
Councilmember Richardson,
Here.
Councilmember Williams, Councilmember Daves, Councilmember Rich,
Here.
Councilmember
Here.
Statement of Rules.
Good morning.
Morning.
We're glad to see each and every one of you. Most of the individuals in here now are city staff, and we've asked that non-city staff persons would follow this meeting and interact with us from the atrium and then be called in. This is the temporary normal that we're having to adjust to as a result of the pandemic that we are presently having to conduct business under, including the wearing of these masks and the spacing for social distancing. And so it's not a disrespect to anyone. And as things lighten up, we're hopeful that we'll be able to return to some semblance of normalcy. First, we'd ask that you turn off or silence all of your electronic devices upon entering the meeting. Any person desiring to address the council must sign in indicating the resolution, ordinance, appeal, or public hearing or agenda item before entering the meeting. When addressing the council, the speaker must state his or her name and address. Any person desiring to speak to the council on a non-agenda item must contact the city clerk's office no later than 2 p.m. on the Thursday prior to the council meeting. The subject he or she wishes to address must be identified and pertain to the city of Mobile and its business. Any person who has not given proper notice to the clerk's office and wishes to speak on a non-agenda item will not be allowed to address the council. Each speaker is allowed 5 minutes. A bell will sound to indicate the end of 4 minutes, which means that you will have 1 minute remaining for summarizing. The second bell indicates that all of your time has expired. When addressing the council, there is to be no personal address to any individual council member. All statements are to be made to myself, who serves as chair, and I will recognize any council member who wishes to respond. To maintain decorum, there will be no undue applause and/or public outcry allowed. These are our rules for this particular meeting, and we are appreciative of your interest in your municipal government. Madam City Clerk.
Approval of minutes of May 26th.
So move.
Second.
Been properly moved and second. Any discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Communications from the mayor.
Just good morning. It's good to be back in the auditorium, even though it's a very small crowd. It just seems like this is where we're supposed to be. Be glad when we have more people in attendance. Well, first I want to thank the City Council for the statement that they put out regarding the last weekend's events. Thank you very much for doing that. Yesterday was the first day of hurricane season. It was the beginning of week 13 for the coronavirus, and it was 8 days since the senseless death of George Floyd. As most of you know, the weekend's events, were very challenging. They were encouraging, but they were also disturbing. As you know, we had 2 events on Sunday. One was the vigil, and the other was the protest. While observing that, I think that you saw some of the same things I saw, and having an opportunity to engage with some of those that were participating. What we saw was a very diverse crowd, age, gender, and race. We saw a crowd that was generally very well behaved. We saw the police walking with the crowd. We also saw the life of George Floyd solemnly being honored at the vigil. But we also saw the protest being hijacked by outside influences who tried to storm the interstate. After that, we saw the leadership of the Mobile Police Department very professionally de-escalate what could have been a volatile situation. And at the end of the day, before dark, what we had was 1,000 people who were protesting without any arrest, with no bodily harm, with one broken window. And that's truly amazing. An opportunity to express themselves, an opportunity to be heard, an opportunity to work with the police, to do it in a calm manner. But then night fell and things changed. What was a peaceful protest started evolving into what was potentially a very volatile situation. And as you know, there was one law office that had damage caused by arson. There was a broken window in a big box store. There was a burglary. There were a couple of other, I would say, minor incidences. But again, we saw the Mobile Police Department in a very professional manner handle the situation. Subsequently, there were 13 people who were arrested and who at this time remain in jail. So I think it's very, very, very important to know where do we go from here. And what the hope is, and what we will be doing as an administration, and I believe that this council will endorse this 100%. In the past, if you look back, we've engaged in conversations having to do with social injustice. We've engaged in conversations having to do with racism. But as time moves on, and those who are my age, they end up probably not being as involved in the conversation. But we have a whole new group who graduated from high school 6 or 6 years ago, who've gone to college, who now find themselves without a job because of the coronavirus, and they see what they saw on TV, and all of a sudden it's like a tinderbox. And they wonder, why hasn't something been done? And they want to engage in this conversation. And those between their age and my age are wanting to see more progress done. And the way, in my opinion, that we do that is that in a very heartfelt, meaningful manner, with the genuine intent of trying to achieve a different outcome, we sit down and we listen, and we collaborate with one another, and we come up with things that we can do differently, as an administration, but maybe some of the individual citizens can do differently, because you can't expect government to fix it all. The government is just a representative of you. And so we will be reaching out in the coming days. We're not talking about waiting weeks, but in the coming days we'll be reaching out, especially to some of the leadership that helped organize the protest and organize the vigil. And at that time, we will find out others who should be at the table so that we can listen, trying to plot a pathway forward so that people understand that, we love this community. We'll be intolerant in this administration of the social injustices that have occurred in the past. That's one piece of it, and to me, that's the primary piece of it. But there's another one in case there are others that don't like the timeline, maybe don't like the format, and think they can solve things in their own manner. You just think it's important to know that the administration also has a responsibility, and that is to maintain law and order. And that we will do, as evidenced by the actions that occurred this weekend. We're here really to protect law-abiding citizens. And we're also here to protect life, property, and infrastructure. We're also here to protect the rights of those who want to protest. And we showed you that we're willing to do that, and we will continue to do that. But it's also very important to know that we have zero tolerance when it comes to arson, looting, and vandalism. Now, of two things I'm confident, very confident. One is that the huge majority of Mobilians do not want to see arson, looting, and vandalism. And the other thing I'm confident of is that within our police department, we have the leadership, we have the training, and they have the equipment in order to make sure that we do have law and order in this city. So my request and my challenge to you is reach out to us as we reach out to you. Let's join hands and make sure that we can learn from what has happened across this nation as we go forward, because what has happened across the nation does not need to happen in the city of Mobile. We're better than a lot of these other places. We have better citizens, we have better leadership throughout the entire community. So again, my request is please join with us, and let's make sure that we come out better on the end of this than we are today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Manzi, Ms. Velma Jackson has been after me for about 3 weeks able to speak, and I don't know where on the agenda she may be able to do that, but if there's a possibility, it would be appreciated.
Mr. President,
Mr. Williams?
we do have rules of the council. Ms. Jackson's very aware of them. I've always been open to that. The way to the council meeting is through the council. And if it's an agenda item, then the rules are pretty clear. And we can't send everybody else out and without notice have such a input into the meeting. And that's with all the respect possible to the mayor. The way the council meetings through us.
Through the clerk's office for signing in.
Ms. Jackson, we certainly want to hear exactly what it is that you have to say, but we're going to ask that you follow the procedure. 208, what's the number? 7 what now? 7411. Hold it, Ms. Jackson. Ms. Jackson, Now, I don't want you to get too far, because you're going to start talking about the Lord and God, and I'm all for him, and everybody knows it. But before we go down that road, we have, hold it, Ms. Jackson, we have asked, I run this particular meeting. No, wait, I'm not taking this authority. This is a city council meeting, and I am the presider. No. Yes, ma'am. Well, then he goes, he speaks directly to me every day. He would have told me you wanted to speak. I'm asking you if you fine, follow the protocol. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Ms. Jackson. No, ma'am.
I was talking to the mayor. Thank you, Ms. Jackson.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's not make the job I have to do even any more harder than it needs to be. I'm charged with rules, protocols, and procedures, and we've asked everyone else to do something. We've asked all these other persons to follow the stated protocol, and the rules have not changed. It's been that way since I was down here 20 years ago in the youth council. You call in, you get on the agenda, you get 5 minutes. And so we're not disrespecting Ms. Jackson, and we're certainly not disrespecting the mayor. And I don't want it to go out that way. Ms. Rich has a proclamation.
Yes, I do, as a matter of fact, change the tempo a bit. And this is a group that many of you have already heard from. And I'm going to read the proclamation here and here, yes, to receive it on behalf of the Azalea City Quilters Guild. I know you're familiar with this group, and they have adjusted their plans for this event and for future. But again, the Azalea City Quilters Guild has encouraged the appreciation of and educated the community about quilting since June 16th, 1980, through the use of color, inspiration, and imagination to create visual stories that warm our hearts, record history, and bring symbols of joy to our community and beyond. And whereas growing from an original group of 64 to a current total of 144 members, they spend thousands of hours every year volunteering their time, talents, resources, individually and in small groups, creating quilts of warmth and beauty for relatives, friends, community, and national causes. Whereas current projects here in Mobile include over 100 quilts yearly to Project Linus and the Child Advocacy Center reaching children in crisis. Over 100 Quilts of Valor awarded yearly to veterans in recognition and appreciation of their military service in protecting and defending our country, and using fabric scraps for pillows for Mobile SPCA, City of Mobile Humane Shelter, and Animal Control Shelter. And whereas members collect pocket change for Child Advocacy Center, tabs for Ronald McDonald House, supplies for McKimmey Place, and staples for Lifegate at Christ United Methodist Church. And whereas quilts and wall hangings have been displayed during shared expressions, Mobile Museum of Art, Dolphin Way Baptist Church Expo, Sims Azalea Festival, Alabama Pecan Festival, Artist Place at Episcopal Church of the Redeemer, Christ United Methodist Church Veterans Celebration, LODA Artwork, University of South Alabama Library, Arts Alive, and Mobile Arts Council. And whereas the Azalea City Quilters Guild will showcase over 300 quilts at its next biennial Festival of Quilts held at the Ava Center on April 30th through May 1st in 2021. Now therefore, I, Bess Rich, council member of District 6, along with the mayor and all the members of the Mobile City Council, do hereby proclaim the week of June 7th through the 13th, 2020 as Azalea City Quilters Guild Week in Mobile, and I urge all our citizens to join us in this momentous occasion.
On
Thank you.
behalf of the Azalea City Quilters Guild, we thank you for this recognition, and I want to add one thing to it, about 2,000 masks made in the past 2 months. Okay. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Adoption of the agenda.
So moved. Second.
Been moved in second. Any discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Appeals, we have requests for a waiver of the noise ordinance on June 6th at Joe Bailey Park and at the corner of Halls Mill Road and Bay Drive. June 6th, also on Queensboro Court.
So moved.
Second.
Been properly moved in second. Any discussion?
Yes, I would like to just state, just for the record, that Councilman Days and also myself with these noise waivers, I got a chance to talk to Minister Tony Pope, and he is in agreement with us splitting the days up, and I told him we will be monitoring each week, and in the complaints that we will not approve the rest of the dates. He's stating that he's trying to just do some ministry in the neighborhood, and he might not do all the dates, but I did notify him about we're just going to approve just June 6th, and we will visit the rest next week and everything, for the record.
Any further discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Public hearings. Today is a public hearing to declare the structures at 2056 General Gargis Drive North, 354 Dunbar Street, 661 Patton Avenue, 1255 Persimmon Street, 1312 Charmaine Circle North, 1413 Windsor Avenue, 3608 Kent Road, and 560 Mohawk Street public nuisances and ordering them demolished.
Anybody here?
Staff is checking to see if there's anyone present outside that wants to address any of these.
I'm betting Miss Jackson comes to you. Nope.
Okay.
No.
So there's no one here. Mr. Diefenbach, did you have anything you wanted to add? Okay, so the public hearings are closed.
Presentation of petitions and other communications to the council. Dr. Sharon Ingram.
Marion, we probably should say about the rules in the statement as well.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm Dr. Sharon Ingram, and I'm representing my client, Emad Azam. Last year, Mr. Azam came from Louisiana and purchased a building at 2804 Spring Hill Avenue. He went through all of the proper steps of doing the incorporation here in Alabama, getting the permits for the building, and also for an addition to a shed to open a tire shop. So from June 13th to January of this year, he was not told anything about that he had purchased a fire hydrant. He has been forced to spend $16,455 to purchase his own fire hydrant. There is a fire hydrant across the street, which is for public use in that area. The fire marshal that I spoke to who handles that area said that malls told them that they needed to have it done, and I spoke to Mr. Tyree. Mr. Tyree says no, the fire marshal, and ultimately the fire marshal said to the council that you all are the ones that came up with the resolution or the ordinances that requires this small business owner to have to spend this kind of capital just to into Mobile to open up a business. My question to the fire marshal was, and it is to the city council, since he's been forced to purchase this fire hydrant, so there's two fire hydrants there. According to you all, to the city council, supposedly ordinances, that there has to be 200 feet from the structure that he had added on, which was a very small building, a little tin building, a steel building that he had added on, which actually came to 180 feet. So to split hairs over from 106 to 200 feet, that this man has spent $16,000, I think it's very fair, and it sends a wrong message for the city of Mobile to say that we are business friendly, that businesses are having to purchase their own fire hydrant, and then to be told that you will not, this doesn't belong to you, and that if you should leave, it stays there. Well, my statement to him was, when you leave, yes, get a shovel and dig it up. If you spend $16,000, it should be his. So the question is that if there's a fire, as I asked the fire marshal, if there's a fire next to Commonwealth, Compass, there's a supermarket on the corner there, if there's a fire, are they going to use his fire hydrant? And the question is yes. Well, then it's not his fire hydrant. Then why are the rest of the businesses in that area not forced to spend $16,000 for their own fire hydrant? So I'm here today to get clarification, one, as to why he's had to purchase a fire hydrant. Two, where is the rules and ordinance or resolutions that the city council supposedly passed that allows the fire marshals to force a small business to purchase a fire hydrant? And if that is the case, then why, after he spent this money, why is it not allowed to take the fire hydrant with him if he should leave that location?
Dr. Ingram, we're going to ask that Colonel DeLapp would provide a response to your inquiries. It's unfortunate that whoever it was that you spoke with would tell you that it was us that made that decision.
Yes.
Relative to the placement of the fire hydrant. All of that you just referenced is administrative. We don't get down into the weeds as to whether fire hydrant should be on this corner or that corner. That would come from the administration. And so we're going to ask that the Colonel would address those concerns to the best of his ability. He may not be well versed on it as well, and it may be that he needs to reach out to you after this meeting. On the left. Are you the
I'll make a comment to that. You know, based on one side of the story, because I've only heard one side of the story, Dr. Ingram, is that I too would have questions about this. And when it comes to the city council passing ordinances, it's not really ordinances, but the city council does adopt, a fire code every so often. And so when we adopt a fire code, then that becomes, kind of the law that we operate under. But I can assure you that we will look into it. Colonel DeLapp will do that, and we will be getting back to you. If you can leave your contact information, maybe give it to Matt Anderson right there who's walking by you. Now he's turned around. If you can give him your contact information, we'll reach back out to you and see what it takes to resolve this issue.
Mr. President.
Okay.
28 Spring Hill Avenue is in District 1. I have been on this council almost 24 years. I have never heard of a business being required to put down a fire hydrant. I've never heard of it.
Yeah, we did.
Fire hydrants are operated by the fire department. If it's a fire, they come and connect to the fire hydrant. I would like to not only I would like to know what I would like to see a copy of the fire code, because there are publics that has not been there long. I can count you all kind of businesses that was built that there's no new fire hydrant. When the fire department come, they go to the closest fire hydrant and they run that line up to where they need to go, or they have a pumper truck with water already on it. I have never heard of this. I would, whatever the administration find out about this, I would like to get a copy of whatever they send to you. Plus, I want to know I want the city clerk's office, I would like for y'all to get me the fire code dealing with fire hydrants.
Mr. Williams?
Dr. Ingram, I certainly am sympathetic, but a lot of times what comes from this podium is opinion. And what is not opinion of what I'm going to say is that this has been done before. It is the responsibility of developers to hook up to sewer, to water, and to provide a fire extinguisher or a fire hydrant if their development causes the need for a new one. And that's what we're going to find out, that there is a tremendous precedent, and it doesn't seem fair. And I think that there ought to be some kind of program where, especially with the situation you're talking about, when a new development is coming in, that maybe we can find a way to help with that. But it has been done. It's been in my district twice. Both thought it was unfair, but eventually paid for the fire hydrant to be put in. But I know that the administration is going to give you a full and thorough answer. I look forward to doing whatever we can as a council to assist the administration in helping all that want to be in business here. Thank you.
With all due respect, I understand if it was a developer and this was a development, this is a very small 1,600, it used to be a restaurant right there at Spring Hill and Mobile Street. So if the restaurant, which I think would be a higher risk than someone that's patching tires and selling tires, that if the restaurant prior had been there for years, as I was told, that they weren't required to have a purchase of fire hydrant, then why would this gentleman have to purchase one? So now there's two there.
Ms. Ingram, I'm going to apologize. I didn't really intend for the response. The rules allow for you to speak once, and we'll take the president's for explain that. Sorry about that.
Ms. Dr. Ingram, the administration's going to get back with you with the response that you need, and I'm hopeful that it'll be a response that will allow you all to move forward with your development. Mr. Anderson has your contact information, and if he doesn't, I can certainly share it with him.
Okay.
And then they'll reach out to you shortly.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. President,
Mr. Richardson?
I would like to close my comment out by saying that there is a major service station on that corner there. It's a nationwide company that they serve gas, food, and everything. It's right across the street from there. It seems to me if they needed a fire hydrant, they would have made that big development, put a fire hydrant. They are right across the street from this big development. So this little small 1,600, this small something there here, that we're asking them to put a fire hydrant. You got all of those businesses right on the road, right there. All of them right there.
Yeah, he wants to.
And you're gonna make this one put the fire hydrant in. I'm like them. Well, their fire hydrant put out the fire if something happened across the street.
CIP, Fred. CIP.
You asked the administration to advise you of what they find
That's
out.
exactly right.
And I'm hopeful that-
And I want to know why
Yes, sir.
why those other businesses didn't have to do it. These big businesses didn't have to do that.
Yes, sir. Madam City Clerk?
Reggie Hill.
Reggie Hill, 2007 Center Street. Good morning, everyone. Those who make peaceful revolution impossible make violent revolution inevitable. President John F. Kennedy. For years, I have petitioned before the Mobile City Council addressing everyday issues that matter to the residents. For months, I have warned our city leaders about the rage and the hostility that will make itself present in Mobile, Alabama. If we didn't take proper collective action to eliminate the corrupt ideologies that have plagued our city for quite some time, week after week after week after week, I have repeatedly provided meaningful, data-proven solutions. And today, we have to push forward. Today, we have to understand that nonetheless, our city leaders have continuously finessed the people, and that will be no more. Mr. President, today I will continue the peaceful protest for justice and equity. I rise not only as a man of faith, but also as a vessel from God in heaven to offer a challenge to the media, politicians, appointed officials, pastors, banking institutions, educators, and most importantly, the citizens of Mobile. One might ask, how do I have the merit to do such a thing? Well, I'm already used to my phones, emails, social media accounts, cars being tapped by officials and leaders of the city. I'm already used to illegal evictions through city buildings in the city of Mobile. I'm already having to face assassination attempts in the city of Mobile. So that gives me the merit to come down here and bring forth this challenge to our people. So when I look at, and then I don't even mention the illegal citation that was provided, which is still in the court system right now. We can no longer allow our people to be finessed. We had a demonstration, and this is all in public safety. We had a demonstration just 2 days ago, where our chief, our public safety director, and our mayor, once again, finessed the people. How you say that you'd rather have a dialogue and a meeting? Went for weeks, week after week after week. Just last Tuesday, I asked the public safety director directly to have a meeting regarding public safety within this city. We have not heard anything about this. So I'm going to offer my demands, the requests that we have for the city, and then we'll be able to go. This is on my time, Mr. President. I only have 5 minutes.
I'm in your time.
Okay.
But this is what I'm going to say. No one in here, we have masks around our mouths, not around our ears. No one in here is hard of hearing. I'm going to ask that you would tone it some if you don't mind, sir. We want to hear all that you have to say, but if you would, tone it down. You would want us to just tone it down. Is all
I'm a little further away from y'all this time, so I want to make sure that y'all hear me. We've already been put out of a meeting by letting the city rules go over the mayor and the governor.
Mr. Hill.
We were socially distanced.
Mr. Hill, I understand we're socially distanced. I'm letting you, and I'm confirming to you, that in spite of our being socially distant, we hear you perfectly well. The mic is working exceptionally well, so you don't have to exert yourself to that degree.
The people are tired, Mr. President. All due respect.
Yes, sir.
And I'm speaking for more than just myself. So you will have to just excuse my passion for today, and I ask that you would please hold this time because I'm responding to a remark that you made, and then I will continue my presentation.
Mr. Hill, if you can continue your presentation.
That's what I just said I was going to do,
Tone it
Mr.
down
President.
is all I'm asking you. Is tone it down.
I cannot relinquish my passion for this moment. Again, please excuse me if it is too intense for what we're speaking on today. So I will continue with my request. I have warned the city plenty of times before. I warned the chief of police about matters if they weren't taken care of, that what would happen to the city. And in 2 days, those are the things that happened. So once again, I'm coming to give this warning to the city. So these are the requests. If we can't do it this week, next week there will be demands. We're seeing the discord. God is not pleased. And we sit up here playing politics. God is not pleased with this. So these are the requests. Dealing with houses. An open forum before July with the citizens of Mobile regarding specific housing and neighborhood revitalization needs. An investigation into resources appropriated to housing needs that have been repurposed for non-housing or neighborhood revitalization needs. Presentation and policy recommendations that shall be implemented before the end of this fiscal year. Ordinance 288042, that's 219, was signed into code last year, and we don't have the first piece of evidence that proves that any of this has merit of existence. So we need to make sure that failure to meet these requests warrant Article 6 of Chapter 28 in the Mobile Municipal Code be dissolved. regarding the municipal court, amend section 38.11 to ensure that companies and governmental entities, such as the Mobile Police Department, but not just limited to that, are held to the same standards as common citizens regarding legal penalties. Amend section 38.9 to ensure that all nonviolent offenders be offered secure bonds for their trial. Amend section 38.22 to specify the expected funding of the Mobile Municipal Court monthly report. We must have a specific finding for that. And to apply a fine when this report is not provided to the Mobile City Council and the public. We had a committee meeting for Chapter 38, and they presented a report from 2009. 2009 committees, especially the Public Safety and Finance Committee, each standing ad hoc and unspecified City Council committee must conduct at least a monthly meeting in which citizens shall make solution-based presentations alone. Each City Council committee must provide a monthly report identifying new findings and policy recommendations to the City Council and the public. Performance contracts, proactive measures to prevent the hostility and violence that we're seeing across the city of Mobile. Appropriate an additional $1 million to be allocated for single-digit employee nonprofit agencies, agents never receiving performance contracts before, and those who have been awarded fewer than 3 times. Develop an evaluation metrics which rightfully ensures that award recipients yield the results applicable to the resources approved and appropriated. Police training. Just as the Veterans Recovery Resources was able to put a contract together with the Mobile Fire Department, I believe that the City of Mobile must establish and implement a contract with success for the future to facilitate sensitivity training for the Mobile Police Department.
Thank you, Mr. Hill.
We
That's
have
your
data
time.
proving that.
That's your time.
We've already proven that. And thank you for the
Reggie.
opportunity to speak. I will submit the rest. There's still more to be done. But this is for our people in the city.
Thank
They
you,
don't care
Mr.
about
Hill.
doing meetings.
Thank
What
you,
they're
Mr.
concerned
Hill.
about is coming to this meeting, voicing their
Mr.
opinion, see how we
Hill.
can change the municipal code.
Thank you, Mr. Hill. We appreciate your passion. And let me just state for the record that the activities that we've seen over the last few days were not exclusive to the city of Mobile. This is not a problem germane to just the city of Mobile. In all 50 states, New Zealand, Brazil, and Australia, and some other places, all of them had similar marches and protests in support of the concept that Black Lives Matter, in support of the concept of decreasing police brutality and things of that nature. So it's not exclusive to the city of Mobile. So all of those suggestions, while well-intentioned and well-merited in some cases, they would not have prevented any of this. The incident that occurred 8 days ago is what caused all of this. Now, are there discussions that need to take place here in the city of Mobile? Absolutely. But giving a contract to this nonprofit or that nonprofit is not going to stop those discussions. And it's not going to solve all of these problems. And so I don't want it to go out that someone had this magic wand months ago and came down here and gave us some kind of crystal ball reading as to what could have prevented it from happening when we didn't know what was going to happen in Minnesota was going to happen. Madam City Clerk?
Mr. President,
Mr. Vice President?
I do agree with the statements that you made. And I would like to also ask you, if possible, they feel right, Mr. Hill a letter, or to have the city clerk to write him a letter and ask him if he, next time he come down here to address us in decent and in order. If not, he would be suspended from city council meeting, because you should do all things in decent and in order, and what happened in Minnesota did not happen here in Mobile, Alabama.
I'd like to sign that letter, co-sign.
Madam City Clerk, if you could have that letter drafted, I will be happy to send it on behalf of this council. And ladies and gentlemen, I recognize, I have a calendar. I have a calendar. And I know what time we're creeping slowly up against. And I'm hopeful that persons won't use a matter as sensitive and as important as what happened in Minnesota to try to get some time and to try to prop themselves up for some semblance of a political campaign. It's unnecessary, it's unwarranted, and too many folks' lives are at stake. Too many people care too passionately about this subject matter for it to be treated in that manner. And I'm starting to smell it, and it reeks. And so, Madam City Clerk, if you could fashion that letter, I would be happy to send that over to you. Thank you.
Resolutions held over. If there are no objections to any of these, I'll take them all together.
Mr. President, the 6389, should you also choose, there's an amendment to that's been set forth.
I'll take that one separate.
Okay.
Okay. 01365, authorize agreement with Alabama Department of Transportation for government street congestion management. 01367, authorize amended agreement with Alabama Power Company and SMG for storm staging site at the Civic Center. 01368, authorize temporary site use agreement with Alabama Power Company for use of the parking lots at Matthews Park for storm staging following a hurricane or other weather-related event. 08369, approve item based from Sunbelt Fire and Rich Safety for fire department gas detection equipment. 08370, approve item bid for Gray Bar Electric Company for pole breakaway supports. 08371, approve and base bid award for large truck oil change services to Ward International Trucks. 08372, approve purchase order to CDW Government for computers for Hertel Street Computer Lab. 08373, approve purchase order to Gray Bar Electric for 48 LED street light lighters. 08374, approve purchase order to Gladiator Forensics for annual licenses for wireless network for software products. 08375, approve purchase order to CDW Government for drone accessories and software. 08376, approve purchase order to Vermeer Southeast Sales and Service for trencher. 08377 and 378 are approving purchase order to Toter for trash containers and replacement trash containers, lids, and parts. 08379, 380, 381, approve purchase order to AutoNation Ford for pickup trucks. 08381, 382, approve purchase order to Ward International Trucks for Ford trash shuttle trucks. 08383, approve purchase order to Gray Bar Electric for aluminum roadway lighting poles for Tiger Broad Street project. 21384, authorize the Atlantic Group for GIS mapping services. 21385, authorized contract with Southern Earth Sciences for groundwater monitor abate C&D landfill. 31387, authorized grant application to the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation for replacement of bridge on Service Road 163 over Perch Creek. 60388, approved recommendation to sell 320 Dolphin Street.
So moved.
Second.
Properly moved in second. Any discussion? Absent any discussion, all in favor? Aye. Opposed?
60389, resolution to urge the Mobile Legislative Delegation to propose and support legislation to allow no excuse absentee voting.
So move.
Second.
Properly moved in second. Any discussion?
I
Yes.
believe Mr. Arledge has is there amendment, Mr. Arledge?
If you're going to vote on it, there was an amendment proposed, remember that?
Right.
So I think the one that's on the table already.
Well, is there,
Let
I
me
think
make
there
sure I
should be a
understand.
different heading than the no excuse.
Right.
I think we landed on a pandemic as
Right.
an excuse. Is that correct? That's the way I would read the revised.
The
So-
actual resolution
Yes, sir.
reads in
Joe's gonna, let Joe read.
I'm not against that, but
There's an amendment.
substituted?
yeah, we have on the Novus agenda, we have an original resolution, which was truly no excuse.
A little louder, Joe.
And then we had a later version. And so my understanding is what we're talking about is taking the later version.
Mr. Days, please get in your microphone.
We can't hear up here.
Okay, I'm sorry.
I can't hear down here, so I'm not being left out.
We had two versions on the Novus agenda. We had the first version, which was truly no excuse. And then there's a second updated version, which provides that we're urging the Mobile County Legislative Delegation to propose and support changes to current Alabama law at the next available legislative session, at which such changes can be considered that will allow absentee voting in situations where the voter has fears or concerns of, or may be at risk of contracting or spreading a widespread disease or virus such as COVID-19. So in order to get this additional exemption, two things would have to happen. The person asking for it would have to be fearful or at risk of contracting a widespread disease or virus. So there would have to be a widespread disease or virus going on that the person was concerned about.
So, Joe, are you amending now? Are you-
I'm amending.
Taking out the excuse, the no excuse.
Yeah, we're taking up this. I'm amending it so that we take up the second version, which was done. Is that right, Mr. Arledge?
Okay.
And Madam Clerk, I'm so moving. Yes, so moving.
I second.
Second.
Well, I think
Motion and second. All in the discussion?
Well, wait, we want to make sure we know exactly what it is we're voting on. Is this the second version, Joel?
yes.
Do we need
The
to
motion
amend
is to
it?
take up the second version. Amend it so that we're taking up the second version.
Okay, so
And it's been second.
okay.
Yes.
So the words "no excuse" will not be a part of what to the delegation at all. There
Correct.
will be no excuse. No excuse won't be in there.
All right, come on.
Is it properly promoted? Second, any discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Now, we'll take the item up as amended. We've had a motion and a second. Any discussion on all of this?
I would like to discuss it because.
Ms. Rich?
Thank you. When I first read the resolution to send to our State House, I understood the preamble dealt with the pandemic. And so if this new resolution includes that, I'm all in. However, this will not happen for this coming election cycle. So I do think that people, this is just a bit of advice, but I believe that people have a box they can check that is a medical reason of why they are unable to attend, either infirmity or a medical reason. And I believe that having a declared state of a pandemic would allow a person to click that box and go about their business of getting their absentee ballot so that they do not have to physically come. And again, if our letter to our State House, our representatives mention having a box that says in the event of a pandemic, whether this one or future ones, then that would be a box they could then check off. So that's fine. But this time, it's not going to be on their ballot or their absentee request. So they have to check the health one if they feel they can't be there.
Daves?
Thank you, Mr. President. This started out as no excuse. I could not have supported a resolution that was truly no excuse. And I think my concerns are shared by other council persons. But I think that the version we are about to vote on and adopt is specific and targeted enough, certainly for me to support it. I would urge the media, please don't call it no excuse, because that's what it is. Thank you.
That's fine, Mr. Any further discussion? Let me just say that I had absolutely no issue with no excuse. because it increased and it took away all encumbrances as it relates to rightful citizens, electors of this community, having an opportunity to participate in their democracy. 38 states, at least 37 states throughout this union, have something similar to no excuse absentee balloting. We already have one of the most cumbersome absentee balloting processes in the country, where if you don't sign the right line, and if the stamp isn't faced the right way, and if you don't have the right witness, and if the notary doesn't attest in the right manner, then your ballot is spoiled. We already have all those mountains to overcome. We don't have extended voting, where persons can go 2 weeks ahead of an election day to go to the polls to cast their prerogative. We don't have anything of that nature. Only out is absentee balloting. So I want to state for the record, I have absolutely no issue with no excuse, because if you have the right to vote, then there have to be mechanisms in place to make certain that you can participate. There are persons who work 12-hour shifts who aren't able, particularly in the pandemic that we're in now, to leave and go and stand in a long line in order to vote. So those persons ought to be accounted for. I'm happy that we've come to a consensus, which is the beauty of our form of government. I have the right to share, to have my perspective, and Mr. Davis and Ms. Rich have the right to have theirs. And we have taken all those perspectives and come up with something that all of us can listen to, hopefully. So the government works. But I want to state for the record, I don't see one issue with why we cannot be like 36, 37, 38 other states in this union that don't put encumbrances in front of their citizens as relates to having access to absentee balloting. But if this is the best we can do, all for it. Any further discussion?
Mr. President,
Mr. Small?
I would like to ask this council, if possible, if we probably can look into writing a letter to Judge Don Davis about doing some PSAs about absentee, voting to Mobile County. Again, this pandemic that we're in, it affect a lot of elderly people, and a lot of elderly people do go and vote. And besides having long lines at the polls, I think it would be more easier for poll workers and the people that's voting to do absentee voting, besides having long lines at the poll. And especially last election that we had, that the Mobile County had a hard time finding poll workers. And I believe that if he does PSAs and try to encourage people to do absentee voting, not only that will help reduce poll workers probably at the polls, and but also will help people to feel more comfortable in doing absentee voting, besides being uncomfortable standing in long lines at the poll trying to stay social distance. But if the council would like to sign off on it, if all 7 of us agree, I believe that we should write a letter to encourage him to do some type of PSAs to encourage doing absentee voting and everything. And that's just a thought from me.
I don't have an issue with that at all, Mr. Vice President. If you could get a draft to us so we could all see it, and we'll move from there.
If Mary, if you can work on something that on us,
Thank you.
for us,
Great
please.
suggestion.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? If not, all in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Consent resolutions being introduced for the first time, 01390 through 46400.
Motion to suspend the rule for immediate consideration for consent resolution 011-390 through 46-400.
Second.
Properly moved and second. Any discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
01390, authorized transfer of property agreement with Africatown Community Development Corporation for the Africatown Welcome Center. 03391, reappoint John Pritchard to Mobile Civic Center Advisory Board. 392, 393, 94, 95, 96, 97, 9.8 and 9.9 are declaring structures public nuisances and order them demolished. 400 honorarily renamed Jefferson Street between Savannah Street and Selma Street, Marion A. Harris Way.
So moved.
Second.
Properly moved and second. Any discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Items passed.
CIP resolutions being introduced for the first time, 21401 through 21402.
By council rule, these said resolution will be laid over for 1 week.
Resolutions being introduced for the first time, 08403 through 6408.
Motion to suspend the rules for immediate consideration for resolution 31-407, and the rest of the resolution will be laid over for 1 week.
Second.
Properly moved and second. Any discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
31407, authorized grant application to the CLG grant funded by the Alabama Historical Commission with a match of $12,699.
So moved.
Second.
Properly moved and second. Any discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Announcements.
Mr. Williams.
Thank you very much. I'd like to just touch briefly on Resolution 21402, which is Mims Park. It is the second major project that we've had in District 4 since the beginning of CIP with regards to pure park changes. And this is going to provide for the first ever synthetic field that is designed primarily for baseball. And it will ensure
What's
that,
that date?
that high school tournaments and
27th.
large tournaments that come to our city will not be rained out because when the rain stopped, there was just simply too much water. And this is going to not only serve the youth baseball programs, but it will also serve Murphy High School, who has always had what I consider substandard conditions at Mims Park until now, when we were able to address this in priority. And that's all I have for today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Ms. Gregory?
Oh.
Yes, ma'am.
Sorry, just have a hard time hearing up here.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you. No announcements, thank you.
Mr. Vice President?
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to commend the First Baptist Church on Baltimore Street and also Pastor Mary Clark on a very successful food along with the Feeding the Gulf Coast on this past Saturday. They fed hundreds of families in the Oakdale community. They went out without any chaos or anything like that. And again, I'd like to thank First Baptist Church and Pastor Mary Clark for giving back to the community as he's been trying to do for the last couple of months with a food given away. Also, work has begun on Baltimore Street. The milling has been done on yesterday. Unfortunately, we had to postpone our groundbreaking ceremony, but work is working the milling part on Baltimore Street, and neighbors are very excited. Had an opportunity to walk them down the street on yesterday. The parts that's being done, and neighbors again are very excited about the newness that is coming along Baltimore Street. Looking to do something in the future on the other side of Baltimore Street, which is on the other side of Broad Street, in the near future. But again, great thing is work is being done. And also the senior center, sales center on DIP, talked to Ms. Smith, and work is about to get ready done down that way. Whenever the seniors, when they get a chance to get back, they will have the extra rooms down there to be done. There is a grant that the city has a deadline on, which is by October, to get some exercise equipment. But the work has to be done by October 1st. So I talked to Ms. Smith, and she said work is going to start shortly and hopefully get done before the summer end. And if the seniors don't get a chance to reach back there anytime soon, that they're looking to have some new programs at the sales. So great news along DIP. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Ms. Rich?
Thank you. Just like to announce again, senior centers are closed within our city. However, there's a initiative going on where they're giving out blessing totes, and this is quite a nice thing that has a mask in it, has other cleaning products, and also a bagged lunch. They're giving it out at the Parkway Senior Center from 10 to 11 on Wednesday, this coming Wednesday, and next Wednesday, and also from 2 to 4 at the Connie Hudson Senior Center. And you just drive up and someone will run out the bag to you. And so I want to thank everyone who's helped pull this together, all personnel at the senior centers that are organizing this, the Connie Hudson Senior Center Foundation for also sponsoring this financially. I'd also like to announce a Public Service Committee meeting. It will be on July 14th. That's a little ways out, however, at 2 o'clock. But it is, again, to invite all utility companies to please come and send a representative. I'll ask the city clerk's office to send that list to those representatives. And we're interested for Alabama Power to give us an update on their utility pole placements and removals and numbers that this council is very interested in. Again, this will be on July 15th, which is a Tuesday at 2 o'clock. And I guess we'll announce where it will be depending on what is up with our pandemic response. But again, it's for the utility companies, and the Public Service Committee is myself as chair, and Councilman Richardson and Daves are members.
Thank you. Ms. Rich? Mr. Richardson?
Okay. Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to start off by commending the two groups, the two services, and the leaders of the two services that took place downtown Mobile on Sunday evening to memorialize the death of Mr. George Floyd, who died in Minneapolis, Minnesota, at the hand of a police officer. And that stirred up citizens all over the nation and in parts of the world. The estimation is that it was approximately 5,000 people in all downtown. The report we were given said no one was injured and there was no arrest. I just think that in comparison to what's happening in other cities, we didn't have to come and take our hat off to what happened to our. First of all, we need to commend the organizers. We need to commend the citizens who came down and supported, and we certainly need to commend the Mobile Police Department for the role they played in keeping this city safe, our citizens safe, and this event safe. That night there was some things going on at night that had nothing to do with the memorial service, and the police had to come and put all of that down. But so far so good, and all in all, I say that we're done. We did good for that period. But in reflecting in the future, it's a couple of things that I think we ought to do. I will be announcing a Public Safety Committee meeting. I think it is time for us to do an assessment. In other words, we don't want to wait until something happened here, and then we rush in to say they should have, could have. We need to make sure that we know what our policies are regarding the use of lethal weapons. We need to know now, and if that policy needs to be updated and changed, we need to know. But we need to know what is the policy. this is what I have seen all too many times. That there was the confrontation between a citizen and police. Citizen had no weapons. The police had stun guns, rubber bullets, mace, all sorts of non-lethal weapons that can be used to bring a person to a sense where the police can handle that person and need harm. Instead, I've seen all too many times that lethal weapons was used to restrain a person. The person ended up dying. And we witnessed that in Minnesota, where a man was handcuffed with the handcuffs behind him. What harm could he? How could he harm the police officer? He has his hand behind his back. He is lying on his stomach. What harm? I'm saying we need to know what our policy is on lethal weapons. We need to know, is there a policy on neck restraints where you choke somebody to death? What is the policy on that? If we wait until someone is choked to death, you're going to start an uprising in this city that it will never be the same again. We need to make sure it does not happen. The only way to do that for us to visit the policies, to see what the policy has to say about that. And I will be calling a meeting, and we're going to ask the police department to come and tell us what their policies are. And lastly, on August the 23rd, 2016, this council passed ordinance 09044 that established a Police Citizens Community Relations Advisory Committee. This committee met probably 2 years, and finally they couldn't get enough people to the meeting, and we didn't hear anything else from them. I think in light of what's going on between citizens and the police department all over this nation, we need this community up and working. We need to appoint people that has a concern both for the community and for the police department. We don't need anybody in there for an ulterior motive. The reason I believe it didn't work because of the people that was on the committee. So it's up to us to appoint people in there that has a love for the community and a concern for the community, and the same for the police department. And I believe if we appoint people that we know that has a concern for the community and for the police department, this committee will work. This advisory council will work, and I am asking the council and the mayor as soon as possible to start appointing committees so we can convene them and have them to start having a dialogue in the community and with the police department. Thank you, Mr. President.
No problem, Mr. Richardson. Mr. Dave?
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to join my colleagues and the mayor in commending those who peacefully demonstrated on Sunday, the right to peacefully assemble and to petition for redress of grievances is one of the main and crucial elements of the Constitution of the United States. It's a right guaranteed to all of our citizens. I think that the individuals who participated and attended the vigil or marched peacefully should be commended for what they did. I think the police should be commended for the way they handled a difficult situation. I saw some of the videos, and I'm sure that that there were times when the police felt threatened.
George, we can't hear you too well.
There were times when there were times. Did you hear the first part? Because the first part was really important. I'd be happy to go back over it again if you'd like me to. I think that the police act, as I said, commendably. There were only some times which would have tried the patience of the police and perhaps made them concerned for their own safety. They responded with great restraint, and I commend all of our police officers, our police chief, our public safety director. I condemn in the strongest possible language those who attempted to turn these violent demonstrations violent and who attempted to create damage and otherwise violate our laws. Those people diminish the focus of the initial incident that happened in Minnesota. They turn the attention of the public away from that episode into something else. So I think it's important going forward that again, people respond carefully and respectfully when they're out there demonstrating or holding public meetings. Councilman Rich announced a meeting of the committee, her committee, which has, among other things, been looking into the actions of utilities. That committee has looked at a number of different things. It's looked at poles that are ready to be pulled, except they still got one or two utilities hanging on. The utilities are not pulling their equipment off of the poles, so we've got hundreds of not fully utilized or not utilized at all poles in the city. That committee has also looked at cuts made in the roads and trying to come up with new ways to make sure that those cuts, when they must occur, are repaired and repaired correctly as quickly as possible, and a number of different items. Madam Clerk, I'm hoping that when you send out this notice to these all these utilities that we've invited in these previous meetings, I understand had been a replacement for Ms. Stork at our company, and if you would get that person's name and contact information to us, because we want to make sure when we have our meeting that person is prepared to talk to us about the polls and fully brief about where we were and what we were looking at.
Hopefully she left it.
Yeah. Hopefully Ms. Stork briefed him, but we don't know that, okay? And then one last thing I wanted to mention. The council, several years ago, after really significant debate, adopted an ordinance having to do with temporary sign the rights of way. And that situation has not gotten any better. And I came down here to work today on Dolphin Street, and there are all kinds of these stick signs in the rights of way. And I think we need to look at that again. Mr. Arledge, the one thing that occurred to me that we might do, and I haven't thought all the way through this, but one thing that occurred to me that we might do is require the sign makers, when they get an order to put signs, these stick-in signs, that they're required to deliver to the purchaser a copy of the city's ordinance having to do with placement of signs. that's just something I've thought of off the top of my head, but if you could give some cursory attention to that and see if that's something that that we might be able to do. I don't know the legality of requiring that, but we need to do something about it because ordinance, we really can't have city employees driving around all day long up and down the streets just trying these signs. But we need to take whatever steps we can to get them out of the rights of way because they're unsightly as heck. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Davis.
Mr. President,
Ms. Gregory?
I'm sorry. I should have asked for some announcements. If you would give me an opportunity before you wrap it up, I'd appreciate it.
Sure.
I do want to thank you. I do want to thank the Feeding the Gulf Coast for all that they've done this year. Many of us here on the council provided funds for some food giveaways this year to help during this very difficult time, but Feeding the Gulf Coast works year-round to do this type of work, so we just need to remember what they are doing and to continue to contribute to their efforts. I also, like my colleagues, want to be sure to let our Mobile Police Department know how much we appreciate their actions over the weekend in the very difficult situation they found themselves in. Director Barber and Chief East, you could not have asked for two better representatives of the city, and how they handled the march and the vigil were just really spot on, and I just really think we owe them a big debt of gratitude for their professionalism and how they handled things. And we also need to let the folks who planned both of these events know how much we appreciate how they handled themselves, because they did things the right way. They were there to have a vigil and a peaceful protest march to send a message. Unfortunately, outside agitators come in and they incite, different types of actions, and that's where problems come in, and we've seen that all around the country. And that is taking away from the message that these groups and that we would like to see, and that's disappointing, but we have to deal with those things. So again, we are very grateful for the actions of so many and what they have done, and as my colleagues all said, we always support these protests and people being able to get their messages out there. And of course, it is the responsibility of government, our government, to protect the health and safety of everyone. Those who protest and those who don't. That is our responsibility as city officials, to protect the health and safety of our citizens. And I appreciate what the mayor said as well, because we intend to do that. And hopefully this will then, as we collaborate and listen and talk, that we will come out better in the end. So I think Mobile, especially considering what's happened in so many other cities, is certainly a good example of what can happen to the good. So thank you. That's it.
Ms. Gregory, let me say by way of announcement that this has been somewhat of a very challenging week for me because of the incidents that have occurred here in this nation, and principally in Minneapolis 8 days ago. To think that we're still in this environment in 2020 and still have some of these concerns in 2020, really halfway through 2020, is just unbelievable. And it's truly, just as you'll have that faction of outside agitators who will come in and who will take over and who will jaundice a very peacefully planned vigil and march, just as that occurred, you'll have that faction of our law enforcement who will besmirch the good name, credibility, and hard work ethic of all of our officers, all of our first responders. And so what we see going on across this country is that pent up and built up frustration as relates to interactions with that small faction. I would dare say 98.9% of those who take the oath to protect and serve have the same mindset as Chief Baptiste and our Public Safety Director. 98.9%, if not more. I probably, over the course of my 37 years, have had 10 interactions with police. And of those 10, only 2 were interactions where I could walk away with some kind of a negative impression or some kind of negative perspective. Only 2. And I know that my case, and it's not just unique to me, that's probably the situation with the vast majority of citizens in this city and across this country. But one incident is too much. And when you can see it, see, it's one thing to read about it, and for folks to be able to assign the words alleged to it. But when you can see it and hear it, where a gentleman is asking for his mother, and his mother's gone on. And to hear those well-worn words, I can't breathe, articulated one more time, in a country that would purport to be the greatest in all the land. And I'm not discounting that. Proves to us that we yet have room for improvement. And it's incumbent upon all of us, not just upon those who've taken the oath to be law enforcement, but those of us who create the policies, those of us who enact the policies. It's incumbent upon all of us to do our part and to engage with our citizens so that they know that we understand, that we hear, and that we are not just oblivious to the hurt and the anger and the frustration that exists in our communities. And people say, well, why do they act out in the way that they've chosen to act out? Well, if you won't hear me one way, you'll hear me another. If you won't listen when I speak peaceably, if you won't listen when I write the letters, when I make the reports, and I'm not talking specifically to Mobile, if you won't listen when I file allegations and won't investigate, if all of that matters not, then I'm gonna reach where I know it'll matter. Because the one color that all of us seem to be concerned about is green, and the economic engine room. If you don't believe it, we're here in the hotbed of the coronavirus pandemic, and we're opening up just like it done this. And I want to say to those who would protest, I'm happy to see so many of you with masks on, but many of you don't have it. And you're going to mess around and protest your way right on to Gethsemane Cemetery, Lawn Haven, protesting. I'm protesting, yes, I am protesting. 554 Selma Street. Because I want to continue to have impact here in this city. To the organizers of the vigil, Kim Petway and Jordan, to those who organized the march, our hats are off to you. Marion, if you could help us find out addresses for them, I'd like to write them something to let them know that this council appreciates their efforts. To those outside agitators, sweep around your own front door before you come to sweep around ours. Because I guarantee you there are enough people in this city with the intellect and with the ability to get our argument over here in the city of Mobile. We don't need help from Atlanta. We don't need help from anywhere else. And so my heart goes out to the Floyd family. It does. Because that could have been my brother. That could have been my uncle. That could have been me. And we need to take that serious. And so, concludes my announcements. Thank you to Feeding the Gulf Coast for all that you've done. We've allocated a great deal of resource, and they've been good stewards with those resources. And we've got other food giveaways coming up. please wear your mask. I'm not wearing mine, but I'm socially distant. I'll put it back on. I had it on for 90% of this meeting. If you're going to the grocery store, I was in Winn-Dixie, wheeling down the aisles in Winn-Dixie, and as I'm doing that, folks sneezing and coughing just like it was 2 or 3 or 3 with your nasty selves. Somebody believe that they're impenetrable, and it may not get you, but it'll get the person next to you. There are grocery delivery apps now, Instacart. Use them if you have these diseases, sneezing and coughing. Get out of the public place doing that. Just as nasty as you want to be. And so that concludes my announcements. Is there a motion to adjourn? He already got it. There's a second. Is there any discussion?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
None.
Meeting is adjourned.